So we're doing the Kyber Network, and this is actually pretty interesting. So basically, it's a decentralized exchange and allows for instant conversions of cryptocurrencies and payments. And it also allows, if you want to use this as a method of payment for cryptocurrencies, you can actually receive your crypto. If somebody sends you crypto, you can actually receive it in the cryptocurrency of your choosing. And it also is going to include some derivatives trading as well. So that way you don't have to worry about the price as if you are a merchant accepting cryptocurrencies. So kind of thinking about how KNC is a little bit different from other decentralized exchanges is if you think of Ether Delta or OX, they're not going to have those instant trades because it is on the blockchain. And you do have to wait for so many confirmations, where this is it's a single confirmation and there's high liquidity. So if any of you have ever tried to buy a very low volume coin that's relatively new, say for example an ethereum token, you go to Ether Delta, but a lot of times that spread between the buy and the sell orders are so high that it almost doesn't make sense to make that trade. But with this, they're going to have reserves. So then that way you can basically get the best exchange rate of any of the reserves available. So this provides basically an incentive for people to put their cryptocurrencies in these reserves. So that way they're getting paid for it and making profit from these trades, kind of like an exchange. Also, obviously, it's a decentralized exchange, which is definitely going to be big this upcoming year. If you think about all the regulation coming up, and possibly this is a single point of failure for trading cryptocurrencies, is the centralized exchanges. And especially a lot of them aren't as secure. So, if you're thinking about BitGrail and some wallet issues, and then the exchange doesn't work, and then you lose all your cryptocurrencies because you don't hold those private keys. Or if you think about Ether Delta, where they had that server attack, I think it was about 2 months ago. So this is going to allow more for instant trades, kind of like a peer-to-peer network in a sense. That's how it will kind of work. But just going a little bit more into it. So there's basically the users. So it's going to be, whoever wants to trade out that token, the reserve entities, which this is just basically going to bring liquidity to the platform. You're going to have the reserve contributors, which will contribute to those reserves, and the reserve manager, which will set the exchange prices. And then finally, the Kyber Network operator, which will be the Kyber team first, but then it will switch to a proper decentralized governance once it gets up and running. So kind of how it works is through the liquidity, there's going to be several of these reserves. And say, for example, a new coin comes up, you can put, it will be different pools of individuals having different reserves managed by the different reserve managers. So then that way, there will always be liquidity in those pools. It will also be competitive. So that way there's not one or two monopolies, and they charge a high exchange rate for these new coins. Also, for bad actor prevention, it's going to be transparent fund management model. So that way you can see who is funding to these reserves, and they will likely have predefined addresses as well. So it's not going to change a whole lot. So it'll be pretty easy for the user to exchange those tokens. And how profits are going to work, as I kind of hinted at before, it's going to be the reserve manager and the reserve contributors that are going to be making off the small trade changes. So another reason why I really like this coin is that today they actually released their mainnet. They have 10 tokens able to trade and transfer. And as you can see, they're going to have a lot more coins coming up, especially in Q2 and Q3. So I think this is going to be, it's kind of leading the pack for a lot of the exchanges. It's fighting that problem with liquidity because a lot of, IDEX, Ether Delta, OX are going to have those issues with the liquidity problem. And it's going to be hard to, buy currency at a decent exchange rate unless you're hoping that's going to continue to go up. They also have a great team. They have 3 people on the team that have worked on previous basically cryptocurrency projects, and they have Vitalik as an advisor. So as they alluded to in a blog post, that they actually are able to talk to him and get his advice for how best to use the Ethereum protocol to enable this decentralized exchange. So right now, it's about a top 50 coin. The market cap, it's held pretty steady, especially in the last month, where a lot of these other cryptocurrencies have went down. KNC has steadily trended up. That's another reason why I like it. There's not as much volatility and it's not going in that downward trend. So really why I like it is the team of advisors, they solve this liquidity issue that decentralized exchanges definitely have. And next year and the year after, I think we're going to see some new regulation come in that, it's going to be more strict KYC processes, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for these centralized exchanges to get more registered users, and as well as have more cryptocurrencies on those exchanges. So I think if you're thinking about for all those other smaller cryptocurrencies, as well as getting easy access and not having to worry about like a secure wallet on an exchange, I think this is your answer. I had 4 questions that after reading the white paper, I'd like to learn a little bit more. And I realized that their mainnet just came out today. So I think a lot of this stuff was going to change as they learn how their mainnet's going to work. But first is, how often can you deplete your reserves? So let's say you got a new cryptocurrency, and that new cryptocurrency hasn't really hit any exchanges yet, but you're going to put it in a reserve and you're a reserve contributor. Say you want to cash out, do you have to keep it in that reserve for a certain amount of time, or are you able to deplete it right away? Because then I think you're going to have a little bit of liquidity issues again. What will those payouts be? Is it going to be based on the exchange rate? And then how will you deal with like low liquidity tokens? So some of these newer coins, especially airdrops, which is on my 4th question, where you're not going to have a lot of people having quite a bit of that cryptocurrency. I think that's going to be tough for some of those smaller coins to say, hey, we have enough here and we're backed and we have the proper exchange rate. And what happens after that? What happens if you run out of liquidity and you don't have enough in your reserves? Do you just stop trading? Because then I think that's going to be another issue where it just is not going to be a consistent trading platform. But these are all questions. I think with every cryptocurrency project, you're going to have similar questions to this. But I'd like to see how it's going to go in their next quarter. So that's it for my presentation. Does anybody got any questions?
Would you buy it?
Would I buy it? Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy it. Especially with decentralized exchanges, I think you got to have some of that in your portfolio as we come into this year. I think it's important to start moving away from some of those BNB tokens, those KuCoin tokens, which I think are going to be, pretty solid for the first couple of quarters and maybe all of this year. But I think, by the end of this year and especially next year, you're going to be wanting to have some of those decentralized tokens in your portfolio, decentralized exchange tokens.
So the mainnet launched today, but the exchange is still in beta, right?
So it's like a mainnet, but they don't have all the reserves set up. So they basically only have like certain tokens that you can trade, and you can only trade with Ethereum right now. You can't. Ultimately, they like to say, like, if you want to send Bitcoin to somebody, and if you pass it through this, like, the KNC network, then you can send whatever else you want. Like, that person could receive Litecoin if that's their token of choice, or if they really like the Binance token or whatever token that they want, that's the token that they can get. But right now it's basically in like a lower phase. I think they're still trying to work out some of the kinks, and I think like it's not any better than Shapeshift right now. If you've ever used Shapeshift or Changely, I don't think it's really better than that right now. But I think ultimately it could be, because they're using a different model, and they're not like a central point of failure like Shapeshift or Changely.
Wait, so who is the reserve manager? Is this like institutional or?
So it didn't really allude to how they're going to choose the reserve managers, but for each reserve, there's going to be a manager, whether that's the person that contributes the most to that contribution, or if they're a private like group. Then obviously, if it's a private group, then that they are going to manage their own reserves. But if it's like a public group and having a lot of different people adding to that reserve, then it could be just one of those people. I think this is a great way to have like your cryptocurrency in a reserve making money when you're not doing anything with it. But I think this is a great opportunity to allow for quick transactions, where a lot of these decentralized exchanges that are going peer-to-peer have problems with.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, you have to have a lot of key players here to facilitate the infrastructure. I wonder how many reserve managers, who are those entities?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to play out too. If they're able to get enough people to partner with them, like they have ICX recently added as like a main partner. They're partnering with Wax. They're partnering with a few other key players, key cryptocurrencies really, and then they have quite a few investors. I'm guessing that's probably where the investors are really backing them, is to start off with some of these reserves.
Seems like this reserve manager is the people who gonna help have a big say in the exchange rate, right?
Yeah, they choose the exchange rate. So they're the ones that are going to get paid out once they get like that change in action.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anybody else got any questions on that?
Anybody want to pull fun together and become a reserve manager?
That'd be sweet.
Is it like a unique concept just for this decentralization, or a reserve manager is like a more popular concept among others? I know 0x is also trying to do decentralization. I wonder if anybody have a chance to look into that, see.
So they actually had a comparison like between them and 0x, and it seems like 0x is more of like the peer-to-peer decentralization. And then like the same thing, Ether Delta is an example of an exchange. IDEX is a perfect example. WCX is another example. And all these exchanges rely more on the peer-to-peer aspect instead of the pooling aspect, where they have like a reserve that you can, trade. And I think the other thing is too, since they're doing it more of an instant transaction, where a lot of these, think about it, like if you have to send in, let's say you want to have like a decentralized network, Ethereum works well and works great because it's faster transaction. But what happens when you get to coins that are slower, like Bitcoin? How long are you comfortable with trading your Bitcoin and then waiting for another cryptocurrency to come back? So I think the pool and the reserve funds allows it to also have an added benefit rather than like where you trade between two currencies.